hope you're having an awesome week. And if not, I hope today's conversation turns that around. Gives you a little hope. A lot of hope. I'm Lydia, the founder of Reself. If you're new here, we're all just figuring it out as it goes. Conversations help us along the way. We're talking about something that's been on my mind recently. I just wanted to share. I was laying under the sun and thought I'd hit record. So, lay with me here and let's talk about the cultural revolution that's happening. It's an amazing time to be on Earth. Why not? Why not see it like that? What a time to be alive. The world is a beautiful place. And we can do beautiful things in it. We are. There is hope and magnificence all around us. Yesterday, as I laid out in the middle of the ocean on my paddleboard, looking at the water, looking up at the clouds, looking at the trees on the shoreline, I thought to myself, this is incredible. Out of all of the planets and all of the places in the universes, galaxies, life exists. Here, there's water and life thriving, flourishing all around us. This incredible biodiversity, the atmosphere, clouds. It's incredible. And the incredible thing is, beautiful things are on the horizon for us. And when we see them, when we aim at them, that's where we head. And that's where we're headed as humanity, and here's why. I haven't heard anyone talking about this, and I think that it's important. The sooner we start talking about it, the sooner we can begin to see the hints and cues of it and participate. What is it that I'm talking about? Well, I truly believe that there is a cultural revolution, renaissance, enlightenment happening, fertile grounds for this to happen. For many, it may seem way too early to say that, but amidst the chaos comes clarity, comes opportunity. And we can look back historically on cues and patterns, steps, ways in which different elements of society, research, shifts occur to enable positive change on a large mass scale. And I think that's what we're seeing the very beginning of. And that's what I want to be a part of. Don't you? That's what gives me hope. For all that is seemingly wrong and disturbing and off in the world, being a part, participating in the fueling of positive change, for me is where I find meaning and purpose and joy and hope, fulfillment in community. So what are some of these signs? Well, the mental health epidemic that we're seeing in the Western world is a clear sign that something is off and something needs to change. And as I talk about in the context of reself, mental health is part of the holistic, inner foundation, obviously, right? And it's the first step towards the conscious, holistic, authentic equation, because our psyche, our soul, our well-being, our mental health, they're also intertwined in our ability to thrive and flourish. It's foundational that we take care of that. It's imperative. It's imperative on an individual level. It's imperative on a collective level. The collective benefits when we are individually well, all of us, as many of us as possible. Which is why accessibility is such a big piece of the equation. And the ways in which innovation around accessibility to mental health and the destigmatization that's been occurring over, the past decade is monumental towards this future of a holistic, thriving individual and society, how we understand how to care for ourselves and each other. And that's the thing. Maybe I'm blessed with farsight, but we can all have this farsight. But I really see that step as the step in the direction of what's after that is the conscious living. It's the awakening. It's the depth of life lived fully. It's authenticity, thriving in our contributions to society, however that looks, in the beautiful diversity that it looks when each one of us fulfills our own way, not individualistically to survive for me, but for we to thrive. So mental health is a key indicator of this. What else? Well, in part of the mental health thing, also part of this cultural evolution, which I've been playing with and thinking about this idea for quite some time now, maybe a year or so, is the fact that I think that we can really begin to see the ways in which in 2022 we are picking up the cultural revolution of the 60s. Now, the 60s is framed as sort of a counterculture movement. And it's quite clear why. And that rebellion, that movement against what was needed at the time. We're beginning to see those same values gaining momentum across large scales today. Peace, love, kindness, freedom, openness, to name a broad few. And why this is so important is the fact that to go against what is a fight in and of itself, but a shift is different in the sense that, is there fight and vigor in it? Of course there is. Is there counterculture in it? Sure. But the point here, and the difference here today, the opportunity here, is the fact that instead of going against, we create anew. We actually build off of what is and guide it, steer it in the direction that is a norm. Reself. That's why we say we're empowering conscious living as the norm. It's not going against the fact that it's not the norm right now and it must be the norm in the most authoritarian way possible. No. It's, look at what this does in your life, in our collective, when we live mindfully, with respect of each other and ourselves, with more kindness and compassion, presence, balance, authenticity. We feel it, we see it. That's enough. Because so long as on a large scale, these values, these ideas are picking up momentum and people are acting on them, the fight is not so much a fight against, but for. And that is a radical difference that is incredibly empowering in creating cultural change. And so what we're picking up from the 60s and the counterculture revolution is simply a carrying of the baton. The groundwork was laid. Now it's our opportunity to carry the baton further in a way that is a guiding light instead of a fight. And in conjunction with the 60s and the mental health response to the mental health epidemic of today is the fact that we see a psychedelic renaissance. We're finally seeing the legalization of substances that are so potent in their healing ability that the medical field is finally opening up to what these natural substances can do that pharmaceuticals simply cannot. And we have the opportunity in that sense to create a new culture, ritual, reverence around not only these plant medicines, but plants in general and their healing capacities, their medicinal benefits, their existence and diversity and thriving, in our existence, diversity and thriving, because we're interdependent. When we're not doing well, nature isn't doing well, right? We can look around that. That's the climate crisis cue that we see. But the conscious piece, the well-being piece of the individual equates to the well-being and thriving of the environment. We're all one organism working together, coexisting, thriving in our unanimous thriving. That's why there's a saying that a society is only as good as those the society fails. Because if we don't take care of everyone, we're not taking care of anyone. Because everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves the equal opportunity to thrive and contribute and express their ray of the sun, so to speak. So we have mental health. We have the picking up of the baton of the counterculture revolution of the 60s. We have the psychedelic renaissance. And we have the climate crisis. Now, I think a key piece here is asking ourselves, when looking at the present moment, the chaos, the suffering, all that is, quote unquote, wrong in the world, war, we have the opportunity to not stay in that, but to ask ourselves, and so what do I do from here? What do we do from here? Where do we go from here? What changes? What shifts? What are the solutions? Who's already solving these problems? Because they exist, they're around, they've been around. The responsibility, the opportunity comes in the responsibility of participating in our own way. In allowing ourselves to be changed, to participate in the shift, the revolution, the enlightenment. Instead of dwelling in hopelessness, we acknowledge the future on the horizon, and we participate in the molding of what that future is, instead of being the victim of circumstance. Again, I think there's so much that we can look at and learn from other people's resilience in the face of suffering, our own resilience in the face of suffering. Namely, I'm thinking currently of the war in Ukraine and the ability of Ukrainians to defend themselves against such a larger aggressor. It's been spoken about. It's the sheer willpower and determinants, and it's the fight for the future. It's the holding on to a vision, a belief, a hope. Willpower that Russia simply didn't and doesn't have. Because what's at stake matters most. The freedom, the sovereignty of the Ukrainian people. And so that's what this looks like for us as a whole, as humanity, as our human family on earth. Uniting in love, reverence, respect, decency, harmony, justice, holding on to those visions in the face of any seeming opposition and staying the course. And it really is something to look back historically and see how these things play out. Look what we can learn from. And how we can participate. Because how we got here, and I'm speaking for America, for freedom, for democracy, for these ideals upon which this nation was founded, which isn't to say that it wasn't at the cost of someone else's sovereignty, the native people, indigenous peoples of North America. But in general, the ideals, the reasons why today is the best time to be on earth, there's never been a better time, is because of those who had the ideas and ideals of revolution and their actions aligned with those ideals, spread, believed in, fought for. And when we carry those with us in our perspective, having a larger perspective about where we've been and where we're going, we continue that progression of the good of being, which is what we've talked about before in our conversation around self-evolution for the good of being. The difference is today, our survival, our flourishing does not need to, nor has it necessarily ever needed to come at the cost of someone else's sovereignty, freedom, and thriving. As we've said, together we go further when we all thrive. The Cultural Revolution is the result of the shift within each one of us, the mini revolution that takes place within the individual. Because at the end of the day, we have to look at the hopelessness that exists today and ask ourselves, why? I mean, these are the great questions of life, right? But why be hopeless when we can be optimistic? The future is completely unknown. We talk about this in the Mindset Workshop and in our live groups, and it's really interesting to see the discussion that sparks from this idea, this truth. The future is completely unknown. We can project onto it, make models of possible occurrences, patterns, But the reality is, our choices, our actions today, which stem from our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our unconscious, is what directly shapes that future. And when the individual shift occurs, our actions reflect a collective shift, contribute to a collective shift, the collective cultural revolution, the beautiful diversity of different places and peoples on earth living in harmony. It's not utopian. Will it take time? For sure, 100%. Are there problems needing solutions? Absolutely, there are. It's an opportunity to solve problems, to create a better society, a better interconnected network of different humans, which allows for a better outcome for all. It starts with the individual. It starts with our shifts, because then our children, their children, people who participate in politics, everything begins to shift. The way countries interact with each other begins to shift. The way we understand our interdependence and interconnection shifts. The way we do commerce, the way we operate in capitalism becomes a form of social capitalism, valuing nature and humanity equally, each other. The revolution's happening. The enlightenment, the awakening is here. It's happening. It's not woo-woo. It's not out there. It's here. It's in you and me. And maybe on some days you feel it too. Hold on to that. Fuel that. Feed that. Act on that. Believe in that. Because that is what will allow humanity to thrive and flourish, to overcome any threats, disputes, and dwell in the beauty of our differences while understanding our unity in our humanity. All revolutions begin with an idea. Let's stop fighting each other. And let's fuel a future of freedom, harmony, beauty, well-being, thriving. It all starts with an idea. Believe in it. Act on it. Project onto the future that idea. Follow that as the green light across the bay. And you'll make it there. Will make it there. Until next time, have a beautiful week. Bye, everybody.